There we go. Hey, it's the Right Rican, and today I have Troy Smith from the Troy Smith Show. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself so my viewers could be introduced to Troy Smith.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Troy Smith here. I run launchliberty.com and host the Troy Smith Show on that same site. Also run caliberty.org. We're a news organization just started up in the last year, trying to get people engaged, trying to get people organized so that in 2022 and going forward, we can ensure that we have integrity in our elections, that our constitutional rights are, backed up, that we have people standing up for them.
So what got you into this? Because I'm like, you told me you're 21, so you're a really young guy. So, not many young people care about this stuff.
That's right. Well, in 2016, I heard Trump speak for the first time with the escalator. He came down the escalator and he started to talk about things that my parents had talked about for years, not so much the illegal immigration, really, even at all, just mostly the financial things, talking about the trade deals and how America was not winning anymore, that we were constantly losing. I identified with that right away. Trump was somebody who I supported from the very beginning. And I noticed that as soon as I went out into the world with that opinion, with that, people treated me a lot differently. They treated me with a lot more anger, hatred. And I didn't really understand that at all. So doing that and kind of going along, I graduated high school and I became a musician. I was working and doing gig work, doing really well. And overnight, my job was made illegal by Larry Hogan, the governor here in Maryland. And my options were to either start something of my own or to go on welfare. And I decided that I was going to start something of my own, and here we are.
Well, there you go. You see, God closes one door gets closed, and God opens another one.
That's right.
Oh no, that's great. No, like Larry Hogan, that's the Rhino in Maryland, right? Because I always get down. Bongino is always talking about him.
Yes, Larry Hogan is the worst Republican governor in the United States of America. He's not even a Republican. He's a guy that thinks, here's a guy that goes out to events with his Republican friends, the rhinos here in Maryland, without a mask, without anything like that, without social distancing. He's taking selfies. He's having big fundraiser dinners. He's walking the boardwalk, all without a mask. But yet our students are still forced to wear masks in schools.
So he never changed that. Then, they never changed the law.
He had mandated the mask, but he will not step up for the children in Maryland, and he has continued the mask order in schools.
Yeah, no, we just got that passed again here in Pennsylvania. I'm not happy about it.
I mean, there is no justification for it. And for those who want to see it, I've interviewed a senior health policy expert, man by the name of Matt McBride. He wrote the H1N1 pandemic response report. He was involved in the Ebola response report. And I urge you to please check out his interview and his articles on launchliberty.com, because here's a guy that has been involved with the top people. When you talk about Francis Collins, he knows Francis Collins. When you talk about Anthony Fauci, he's been working for people who are right there with Anthony Fauci. So what Matt told me and told everybody in my audience was basically that he was told to write in this pandemic response report that masks didn't work, that universal masking obviously wouldn't work, because for all of your viewers out there that don't know this, when you're in a hospital, that's the one use for a cloth mask. That's why they were made in the first place. When the doctors are operating, if at any point he touches his face or even touches the edges of the mask is taken off and thrown away, and they get a new one, because when you have germs and bacteria on the mask, they don't work. Mm-hmm. So even though there's evidence, you have the senior health policy expert telling everybody this doesn't work, we still have people like Larry Hogan who would rather go for the feel-good political boost of masking children in schools rather than follow the real science and do what is right for the kids.
Yeah, that's what Rand Paul, when he attacked Fauci and he called it mass theater. That's what it is. Yeah. So it was, that's the policy that's going on in my school. I have a special needs son, and they were saying, oh, well, they're going to have mask breaks and see, how long they could tolerate the mask for. And I'm like, these are special needs kids. These are kids that are autistic, that have so many different disorders. If parents are sending them to school, it's because they feel comfortable enough to send them to school already. But, like my son takes off the mask and they're like, oh, what, are you going to keep putting it back on? Then, like you said, you're touching the mask, putting it back on him. It defeats the purpose of wearing the mask.
And it's actually shown in every study, and Matt said this too, it's shown in every study to be very detrimental to their health. It weakens their immune system, it lowers oxygen intake, and also it causes bacterial pneumonia to have germs on your face like that, constantly breathing them in and breathing out more.
And I was reading something about when it comes to social development with the kids, especially the younger kids, that, we need to see facial reactions and facial responses to get social cues for when, like, let's say when we're allowed to speak, when, to know whether people like you or not. There's subtle things like that people don't realize. Kids are socialized from an early age from this. And we're putting the mask on, it's not only a health issue, it's a mental health issue.
Oh, no, it 100% is. And no consideration is being given to the detrimental effects that it could have on our children. What they're basically saying is that we need to do this because the teachers' unions have decided that we need to do this. The teachers' unions have been holding the CDC hostage. They've been holding the local politicians hostage. They've been holding everybody hostage, saying now in some parts of the country that they refuse to work unless all of the children are vaccinated, even though the CDC says that vaccinated people can spread the virus, they can transmit the virus, they can get the virus, they can have breakthrough infections where they're hospitalized. I mean, all this is admitted fact, yet these people want to hold us hostage. It's the teachers' unions that are guilty, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have this whole, stuff with the vaccine mandate, like, it's about to happen in New York, where you have to show your vaccine card. But it's not everybody could get the vaccine. There's some people who get allergic reactions to the shot. At the same time, you have people who had COVID and recovered. I think there was a study that came out in Israel that they're showing that the people who've had COVID already actually have a better immune response to the Delta variant than people who are who've gotten either, I think was it I don't know if it was the Moderna or the Pfizer shot. I forget which one was the one they did in the study. It wasn't Johnson and Johnson. I know that for sure.
Well, and that's exactly right. And what did the health officials tell us? What did Anthony Fauci tell us early on in this pandemic? He said that the natural immunity would only last 3 months. He came out and said that, and now they're finding that natural immunity is, like you said, more effective. And the places that didn't get vaccines are seeing their numbers drop off, while the places that went full vaccinated, like Israel, their numbers are spiking.
Well, not only that, did you see, I mean, I did a video about this too. I talked about it. There was a study, and I specifically saw the study. Like, I pulled up the 2008 study, not when they like republished it now, because I didn't want none of the COVID bias on it. But the article was from 2008. They did a study on immunity, and they used the 1918 flu. And they still found antibodies from people who were kids when they, during 1918, and now they're in their 90s, and they still have the antibodies to the 1918 flu. So
that's right.
So for people to say, we don't know how long, yeah, fine. We don't know how long the immunity might last for this particular virus, but we do know how much that natural immunity lasts for, for example, the 1918 flu.
Well, that's right. And they didn't allow that evidence to come out. And I would say it's because when you're talking about herd immunity, which has been the big crowning thing, we can't reach herd immunity. This senior health policy expert, Matt McBride, came on my show and showed his data that showed that the peak of hospitalizations and everything for the first wave of COVID-19 was in May of 2020. So there's a thing called Farr's law.
Mhm.
Farr's law dictates the path or the trajectory of deaths and cases of illness in a pandemic. It's a bell curve. So with
Yeah.
all diseases, you're going to have a bell curve like that. The bell curve peak is herd immunity. That's herd immunity. That was
Mhm.
reached in May of 2020. So, but the World Health Organization, the CDC, these new age scientists have decided that natural immunity cannot be considered in the factor of herd immunity, and they will only recognize herd immunity as far as vaccinations. They will not recognize natural immunity, even if it's more effective.
Well, that's what the left does. They change, well, in this case, they change the goalposts, but they change definitions. It's like what they did with, anti-vaxxers. Like it used to be you were an anti-vaxxer if you were literally someone who didn't trust vaccines. Now you're an anti-vaxxer if you're someone like me. I'm vaccinated, but I don't believe in the mandate. So now I'm an anti-vaxxer.
Well, that's right.
And that's what they do.
And and I would say that overall in the country, you're going to see a lot of people trying to force this vaccine, trying to force the vaccine on kids, trying to force it on people. And I would encourage all of your listeners, please. Do not let these people do that to you. Do not let them make you quit. Make them fire you and fight this to the very end, because this is a violation of international law, the Nuremberg Code.
It's like what's going on in New York with this whole show your papers. It's like it's kind of funny because I saw a meme, and people were saying that this was coming in 2020, and they were like, you're a conspiracy theorist if you say that we're going to have vaccine passports. Now it's like, you're a conspiracy theorist if you think that vaccine passports are bad.
Yep.
So it's crazy how a lot of these conspiracy theories have become conspiracy facts in just a couple months. Maybe
No, that's true. That's true. And I always go back to my brother showed me a video the other day on CNN of I believe it was a police officer reading the statistics from New York City. So for your viewers that don't know, the black people make up 23% of New York City's population, yet they commit over 70% of the homicides. So this guy had the facts. He was reading the facts. He wasn't being racist. He wasn't
Mhm.
saying it. He said, these are the facts. And immediately the two people that were with him, the leftists, they immediately attacked him as a racist. They
Mhm.
immediately said that he was awful because he read the facts. So to all those people out there listening, when you're standing up for what you believe in and for what you know is true, don't be surprised that people are going to attack you, because that's what's been going on for a very long time. And as Carlos pointed out, many of the things that have been considered conspiracy theories have just become basic fact now, and you're seeing that more and more.
That's one of the reasons why I started the channel in the first place, is because I had a lot of white friends that used to say stuff, and they're like, I'm afraid of saying these things out loud because I don't want to be considered racist. And it's like, well, you can't tell me I'm racist. Like I have family, my spectrum in the family. I have friends that I got family members who are like super dark, and I got family members who have green and blue eyes. So it's the beauty of being Puerto Rican. We have a mixture of everything. So
Well, I would like to also point out that where you see this narrative in the media that white people are the Republicans and everything like that, I want to point out to your viewers that Donald Trump only declined from 2016 with one demographic in the entire country. One demographic he declined in, and that demographic was white males.
mhm.
He lost over 5% of white males. Now there's 5 million less white males in the country today than there were a year ago. So you might be saying, well, those people just died, but overall, every other category he gained. So the narrative that just because you're Puerto Rican or just because you're black or Hispanic that you have to be a Democrat is in my opinion a pretty racist ideology. It'd be like
It
saying
is.
I have to be white. I have to be a liberal because I'm white. I mean, that's
Well,
horrible.
it's funny. I remember in 2016 at my job, and there was this white lady. She comes and we're talking, and she goes, can you believe that man won? And I look at her and I go, yeah, I voted for him. So she's like, oh, okay. So she starts walking backwards. I'll see you later. And it was like, oops. She didn't know there was because it was me and my friend, he's Mexican, and both of us, we were there talking politics already. And she came in thinking that, we couldn't believe Trump won. And it's like, no, we both voted for him. And, I was living in Texas at the time. And, people don't understand that. It's like, in the news and the Democrats, they make it seem like illegal immigration is like the top priority for every Latino, and it's far from the truth. We don't care about that. We want jobs just like everybody else. We want to be able to feed our families. That's what we want to do. We don't want the government to give us handouts. We don't want to be, I shouldn't say all of us, but that's the problem with welfare, and people don't realize it. Is I was having this conversation the other day, and I said, I have friends that I went to school with that live in the projects, that their family was on welfare. He's on welfare, and they have kids. They have kids now, and those kids are on welfare. And I'm like, that's not what welfare was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be a generational thing. It was supposed to be, you fell on hard times, you get welfare, you pick yourself back up, and you move on. But people have used it just as a way to live, like a lifestyle almost.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And we see that in New York. I've seen it before. They have the bins. They have these big blue tubs of groceries that they'll actually ship down, like to the Dominican Republic and things like that, because the people here have so many food stamps. They have so much welfare that it's more than you could really handle.
Yeah.
I think the welfare state is basically when you look at America as a whole, the inner cities, and the reason that they've declined is welfare. It's pretty obvious. You just look at it, and welfare comes in, and crime goes up, and drug use goes up, and robberies, everything goes up. It's not good. It's not good. So what do you need to do? I would suggest these individuals, these governments that are giving out the checks, simply require people to volunteer for, I don't know, 20 hours a month or something like that. And I think you'd see a lot of the people that are on these welfare programs drop it, because like you said, it's not a necessity in a lot of the places it's used. It's more of an add-on.
Yeah, no, I think it's, if you're able to work and you're getting welfare, there's some stuff. Let's say, for example, cities are dirty. So if you're there in the city, you live in the city and you're there on welfare, you should have to go a certain amount of hours and go and, let's say, clean the parks, clean the streets. Because, when I lived in Texas, if a park needed cleaning, like a really major cleaning, the cities would go to the churches, and the churches would get volunteers to clean the parks. And the government didn't have to pay anything.
Right.
So if you're already paying people to sit there at home and do nothing, you might as well pay them to do stuff like that.
That's right. And I would point out that the political discussion in this country has gotten really watered down. And because of that, we don't get to hear good ideas, and we don't get to hear proposals. But I would say that if you look back at the Great Depression and you look back at what FDR did, as much as I disagree with a majority of what FDR believed in, as much as I didn't like him, I would say that a lot of the park infrastructure, a lot of the infrastructure that we even see around the country was built during that time, because they were paying people to work. And as much as I don't think that's a good idea, if you're going to pay them, you might as well get something for the country out of it. Yeah. And I think it's something for themselves too. I think that being on welfare really tears away at your soul. I think it really does. And if we were teaching these people to do things, teach them to have skills, teach them to how to put together a park bench or something like that, maybe they would improve their lives and the lives of everybody around them.
You got to take pride. I remember I had this. I had a guy I used to work with. He came from money, so he really, when he came to work with me, he was very lackadaisical. He really didn't care too much because he's a kid that came from money. So I used to tell him, it was just something stupid. Let's say I was a file clerk. So if I printed out a file, my name was on it. It literally had my name, who created the file. So I used to tell him, well, you see that there? My name is on that. Because he's like, why do you always care so much? And I go, because my name is on it. I go, if you mess up, your name is on that. So now your name is shit. Now, and I used to tell him, you have to care. You got to take pride. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're sweeping the floor, mopping a floor, that should be the cleanest damn floor there. You got to take pride in what you do. And he never understood that till one day when he made a mistake, because like I said, he really didn't care too much. And we had to, we sensed that you could never keep in an office, you can never keep all your paperwork in office. Sometimes you got to ship it off site. We had to order like 150 boxes to look for a file that he didn't scan into a box. So literally we had to go through 150 boxes. Let's say that probably cost the company like $500-600, just because he didn't take his job serious enough. And after that, he learned, it's like, oh, it's like, no, I got to take my job more seriously. But sometimes, but you have to, he didn't know the value of work. He didn't know to take pride in it. So that's what happens when you put these people on welfare. They don't have value of what they have.
That's right. And we could easily take that negative and turn it into a positive, not only for them, but for everybody else. You just have to require a little bit. And I think, we were talking about the hard left and the hard right earlier. I think a lot of the things that we can focus on, just as people who want to see the country do better, is what are the little things that we can do to flip things around? What are the things like firing the teachers unions? What are the things that we can do to ensure that things get a little bit better? And I think if we do enough of that, you'll see the country completely turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think with the power of some of these unions as it is, it's like, let's say, for example, since you're talking about unions, let's talk about, like, let's say they left complaining about the police. Well, who's the party that loves, unlimited power for the unions? The left. What's the problem sometimes with the cops? You can't fire a bad cop
because the
police union won't allow it. So, I use that as an example because they love that about the unions, that, they protect your jobs, but sometimes it's detrimental. With bad teachers, bad cops, their unions are so powerful, they can't get fired. So there has to be, you have to have a happy medium. Like I tell you have to have a happy medium in order to get, that desired outcome. There has to be a place where, you don't want far left and you don't want far right. We want to be, we're a country of centrists. Okay. But the problem is right now, the country's moving, the one party has moved so far left that, like, I have someone tell me they're a conservative Democrat. And I'm like, that doesn't exist no more.
No,
that means you're a liberal Republican. You're not a conservative Democrat, because they don't welcome conservative Democrats anymore.
No, they want them all gone. And we've seen that with Joe Biden, where, and you're right, we are, I would say that going back a few years, the U.S. was mainly a center-right nation, but I think it's been pulled a little closer to the center. But I would also say this, the places that I see that my show and my site do the best, and we're kind of viewed as the newer Republican types, where we're doing the best is outside of St. Louis, outside of Baltimore, outside of Chicago. So I would say that in these areas that you have, like for instance, I live in Howard County, Maryland. Okay. It's one of the richest counties in America. I think it's like the third richest county. Now, I'm not a rich person, and my parents aren't rich or anything like that, but we live in that county. So I come from Arbutus. My parents were not really hard Republicans or anything like that. My grandparents tend to be a little conservative, but most of my family are Democrats. I live in a predominantly Democrat area. I was educated by a Democrat system. I shouldn't exist,
Me
but
neither.
I do. But I do, and you do too. So I think maybe, just maybe, that these concentrations of liberal control will bring us the new conservative leaders. That's what I'm seeing.
I'm hoping for that too. I think that we need what's going on is you see the inner cities, you see what's going on in the cities where there's majority, like super majority Democratic rule, and then you have a state like California that's super California, super Democratic rule, and you see that for all the, for all that they talk about, they want to fix problems. Those are the places with the biggest problems.
Yeah.
The inner cities, and California is horribly run. That's why that's why you could recall, even have a thought of recalling Gavin Newsom, because of the fact that it's so poorly run.
That's right. And California's standing up. California's standing up, and I would say that that's a perfect example. California, poorly run, so poorly run that it's like a third world country in most parts. All of a sudden, Gavin Newsom is about to go, and the Larry Elder is going to step in. I guarantee. I would almost guarantee that he's going to win on the 14th.
Oh, man.
Larry Elder steps in on the 14th. That has all of a sudden gone from the staunchest, most Marxist, disgusting Democrat in the country to a conservative that has had a history in business. I mean, Carlos, the dawn. It's always darkest before the dawn, and I think what we're seeing now is that the darkness of the liberal control that you just talked about in these cities is coming to light, and the people are seeing what is going on, and together we can stand up and stop them.
Yes, I agree. I think we got to get rid of those far leftists, and I think we got to get rid of the fake Republicans.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that give the like the Mitch McConnells of the world. They're the ones that give Republicans a bad name because they do nothing.
That's right. And part of my go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say all they want to do is just keep power. That's all they want to do. They don't care about changing stuff. They just want to keep staying in office. As how long he's been in office? Like almost 40 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most of those guys, and some of the longest tenure Republicans are over 50, 55 years at this point. The Rhino Republicans are a focus of mine, and that's why I started caliberty.org, because California especially is a huge problem with Rhino Republicans. I don't know if you know this, but Kevin McCarthy, obviously the House Minority Leader, is from California. We have documented history of him sabotaging the California legislator. We have documented history of him sabotaging local California Republicans, getting Trump to endorse the wrong people. What I see, Carlos, is it's unbelievable. The Rhino Republicans, and I'll say this right now, are worse than the Democrats because they make people believe that they're on their side, and they're not.
Well, it's kind of like when we had in the earlier part of when I was doing your show, that I talked about how I said, Texas, like people were talking about, oh, Texas is racist, and I'm like, well, there's racism everywhere. And I go, the difference between racism in Texas and the racism like in New York is the racists in Texas, they don't want nothing to do with you. So,
right.
They don't pretend to like you. In New York, the racists, they pretend to like you and then talk behind your back. So that's a rhino to me. I'd rather have the racist, I'd rather have the Democrat, at least I know where you stand, than the person who says they're Republican and then stabs you in the back every chance they get.
Oh yeah. And to all your viewers out there, when you see these Republican organizations, things like that, don't donate to Republican clubs, Republican this, Republican that. Take your money and give it to the candidate that you want to see win. And from all the people that I've talked to, that's the best thing we can do. I would also encourage all of your audience, if they can, submit a Freedom of Information Act request, or on a state level, whatever it's called in your state, to your local board for a complete ballot audit of 2020, because as we've seen all over the place in Arizona and Georgia, there are huge discrepancies between the actual ballots that exist and what the news reported. So we need everybody to step up and submit those requests to your local boards, election boards, to get this done.
There was shenanigans here in Pennsylvania too. So,
Yeah.
That's why we have a bunch of politicians here that are advocating for it, and there's a bunch of rhinos that are trying to fight it. So those are the ones that, regardless of whatever state you're in, you have to get rid of those rhinos. Though they need to be voted out, because they're the ones that are making these audits harder and harder to do.
Yeah, I would say to all your viewers out there who are conservative, look at what the Democrats have proposed in this short little bit of time. They have a legislation to ban over 200 styles of guns, including all semi-automatic rifles. They have a bill to pack the Supreme Court. They have bills. They've already passed trillions of dollars in spending. And ask yourself, the Republicans had a larger majority than the Democrats have right now in 2016, along with the White House. From 2016 to 2018, what exactly got done? Was big tech dealt with? Was the deficit dealt with? Was the only thing they really did was tax cuts? Did they fail on Obamacare? Did they fail? Did they even propose things that we believe in? No, they didn't, because they were led by Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, and Mitch McConnell. Those people are as useless as it gets. As useless as it gets. And if we're going to move forward, we're going to save America, they have to be ousted.
Yes. They got to be primaried. I know it'll be hard to get rid of Mitch McConnell, but someone needs to primary him, because, like I said, he's a do nothing. I mean, he lied. Yeah. Even Lindsey Graham is another one. But sometimes he confuses me, because sometimes he could be fiery, and then other times he could be wishy-washy. I don't.
Well, see, I'll tell you, Lindsey Graham is a snake. He is somebody who used the Trump movement to get reelected, along with McConnell, same person. But immediately when the Democrats came in, you can look at this. Who was one of the first people that they went to? It was Lindsey Graham. And Jen Psaki has tweeted things out about Lindsey Graham and his homosexual history, things like that. So
now, is that a rumor? Because I know I've heard about that, but I've never seen any confirmation. Like, can you confirm any of that stuff? Because I've always
I can't legally say it, but
okay,
I will say fine. That Jen
offline,
Psaki,
if you could tell me anything, then yeah.
I will say that Jen Psaki tweeted out about him, #LadyG. So I'm telling you, this guy is a real weirdo, and is not somebody that should be leading our movement. He takes credibility away from what we're trying to do, and he doesn't represent Carlos or me or anybody. Even people I know in South Carolina, they can't stand him. They voted against him. He shouldn't be in office. He's a rhino, just like the ones I listed earlier.
Yeah. And I think anytime you've been in office for 30 plus years, I think it's time to go.
Yeah.
I think, since what's your take on term limits?
So term limits, obviously, I'm not as gung-ho about term limits as everybody else seems to be, but I definitely think you have over 80% the Americans supporting it. It should be allowed. And I just want to say to your viewers, if they are interested in pushing term limits, Congress is never going to force term limits on itself, obviously. What we need is a convention of states. Now, if we can get 38 states to vote on a constitutional amendment saying that we have term limits for Senate and Congress, we can get that done. We have over 80% of the populace supporting that, so you can go to conventionofstates.com to check out the efforts going on there. I believe they've already passed in 13 states. So if you want term limits, that's the way it's got to be done, because they're never going to do it to themselves.
No, not at all. I think Ted Cruz has proposed it, and it never goes anywhere.
No. And I will tell you that personally, the term limits to me are not a big deal, because I'll tell you this, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez types of the world, they're not really pushing anything but the agenda of those who fund them. And the people who are funding the politicians aren't going to change. The people that
No,
they
not at all.
fund could change, but I personally, I don't think it would change much.
No, I go back and forth about that just because the fact that I see exactly what you say. It's all the money that's where people are gonna go.
Yeah.
I just and then sometimes I go, well, you know what? Yeah, the money may be there, but sometimes maybe because it's the problem. People just vote for who they know.
Yeah.
So when they go into the booth, they go, "Oh, who is it that we always, honey? Who is it we always vote for? Oh, Johnson. Okay, we'll vote for Johnson."
Carlos, let me grab my charger real quick. I gotta grab the
Mm.
laptop charger.
All right, no problem.
Sorry about that.
Let me just pause the. So, Troy, so you're a youngin. I'm double your age, which is pretty sad for me. You're 21, I'm 42. But I'm curious because we're coming on the 20th anniversary of September 11th, and I'm curious, how did you learn it in school? Like, how was it taught to you?
So September 11th to me was taught. They would have a huge thing every year in the history classes, and we would go over it. And basically, the sentiment from them was that the government did the best job ever at handling 9/11. And I'm not even kidding. That like they would tell you that George Bush, they would literally say, and I swear to God, I've heard this from multiple teachers. George Bush didn't do a lot of things great, but his handling of 9/11 was the one of the greatest moments in American history. I mean, he stood up and comforted the people. And as a kid, like you're like, well, I mean, I guess like we made it through. It sounded pretty terrible. But as I kind of got older and researched more and basically got into the facts of the situation, you see that they did things like not warn the people in the wreckage of the Twin Towers that there was asbestos. Many of them have died of cancer. Just really shady things, really shady things. The government did not do a great job.
No, they did. I mean, oh man, you were talking, and I was going to say something, and it when you get 42, when you get older, this is what sucks. No, yeah, no, they did a horrible job, and with that, they like you said, they didn't warn people about that. There's things that they could have did to mitigate making it worse, and oh, there you go. Then they ended up passing legislation that didn't need to be passed because like the Patriot Act was passed, and the whole thing, I don't know how much research you've done into it, but before 9/11, they tried to pass stuff like the Patriot Act and it didn't fly. They said no, and they took advantage of 9/11 and they passed the Patriot Act. And here we are 20 years later, and if you want to look at it, it's the same thing that's going on with the pandemic. That's why like people talked about Trump being this a dictator and a Führer and all this stuff. But Bush power grabbed after 9/11.
Big time.
He grabbed a bunch of extra power for the government. Trump didn't do that. Trump didn't go, well, we're going to do a national lockdown. It wasn't in his power to do. Now the governors did it, but he didn't say, you guys have to lock down. No, he left it up to the local state governments. That's why they hate governors like Ron DeSantis, that he maybe did like a small, but never a total lockdown, because look, we have to go on like 9/11. We have to go on with our lives. You can't live in fear that, COVID's around every corner. It's, what happens during the next pandemic, because there's going to be another pandemic. We don't know if it's going to be, we don't know if it's if it's another 10 years or another 100 years. We had one 1918, now 2020. So,
well, I would say that the precedent is really bad with this pandemic, because you have a disease with a survival rate over 99%, 99.9%, and still we're being locked down, we're being forced in to our homes and things like that. And that's not right. But you look at what you're talking about. If there is a pandemic like we've had before with higher death rates, what's going to happen then? And we look at what's been done already. When you have a 5% kill rate, what's going to be done? When you have a 10, they have viruses in the lab that Fauci has funded for years that are over 15% kill rate, these same chimera viruses. So is that really okay? Is that what we're going for? And when I look at 9/11 and COVID, you're exactly right. The two are very similar because after 9/11, it kind of became government's duty to check the people in much more serious and intrusive way than they had before, where you have the spying and things like that. And I would say that for all those people out there, you need to stand up with this COVID-19, because if we don't, they're going to put the new normal, kind of like they've done post 9/11.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, you know what? I think that's a good place to leave it, the new normal, because that's what's going on. Where, you know, we have the government overreaching on our rights, and that's, you know, in this century, that's been the new normal for us here in this country.
9/11 was the new normal event, and now they're attempting to make a new one. This time, instead of going for things like air travel and things like that, they're going for the medical system, and that is not good for the people out there. I want you to realize that the people that run our medical system now have the power to do to you whatever they would like, and they can make more money than ever while they're doing it. So we're not for that. We don't want those people to be able to control you. We want you to be able to control them with your dollars, and to go where you please with your care, and to do what you please with your care. That's what this is all about.
All right. Well, I'm gonna leave it there. I think it's a good place to end. Well, for my viewers, I mean, you know, they'll get it in the beginning, but, you know, I just want you to repeat where people could find you.
Everybody can go check out launchliberty.com. The show, the Troy Smith Show, is posted on there. I actually just did an interview with Carlos that'll be posted sometime next week. And we have a lot of stuff going on state level, so you can go check out caliberty.org. But there you can find the written content, the post content. It's not just me. We have health policy expert people posting, and it's really just a collaboration effort to get the people the truth. So it's launchliberty.com. And I want to thank you, Carlos, for having us on. I really like your channel and love that you're out there fighting every single day with new content. It's really an inspiration, and thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm the Right Rican. I post this on YouTube and Rumble. This will definitely be something that it's going to be on Rumble. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. Let's see what YouTube does with our conversation. It's going to be interesting. So have a good one, everyone.